Some people can sing and some people can sing. Cy Smith, she can sing. Her voice has allowed her to accompany many of your favorite artists, including Usher, Chaka Khan, and the late great Whitney Houston. She has worked with Grammy-nominated artists such as The Foreign Exchange. She has also had a very successful solo career, releasing multiple albums on her very own independent label, Psyko Records. She's an actress who has been featured in Hollywood films and television shows such as How I Met Your Mother and Ally McBeal. She's a producer, she's an entrepreneur, she's a talented vocalist, she's an actress. There's nothing that she doesn't do that doesn't turn to gold. Just a beautiful soul and talent inside and out. And I was honored just to have her to sit down and chop it up with me for a few minutes here on Coffee with the Homies. I hope you enjoyed this conversation just as much as I did. A dope person doing dope things, Cy Smith.
Okay.
The first thing I wanted to talk about, I know you graduated from Howard University.
HU.
I tell people that I went to Howard in an alternate reality because it's one of the schools I wish I'd have went to.
Oh, that's all right.
Back in the day. But I was playing football and, got sidetracked with another offer. But
Okay.
I definitely wish I'd have went to Howard. My first question to you is Howard everything that I envisioned it would be?
And more.
I can only imagine.
That is the answer. It is everything that you envisioned and more. My experience at Howard can't be understated in terms of the growth, that I made there, the woman who I became, how the professors engaged with me, the friendships that I've made that are lifelong friendships.
Right.
And my mother told me that would happen, and I didn't understand what she meant until until now,
Okay.
where I've been out of school for a number of years, and
Right.
I see the friendships, I'm like, that's exactly what my mother was talking about.
Okay.
My mom also went to Howard for her master's, so.
Okay.
So and two of my sisters also went to Howard.
Oh,
Like we're
wow.
yeah.
It's a family
So
thing.
it's a family thing.
Okay.
But yeah, Howard was a beautiful experience, and continues to be from what I'm hearing of the classes, that came after me,
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know Howard has a legacy of artists and just people who went on to do great things as alumni. What
Yeah.
was that experience like with you being in music? I'm sure you were around a bunch of musical, artists and things like that in school. How did that kind of
Yeah.
influence you to take the path that you took?
What's odd, Lornell, is I didn't study music at Howard. I studied
Mhm.
psychology. My degree
Oh,
is in
wow.
psychology with a minor in music therapy. So I
Okay.
guess I studied music as a minor. But even though I was in psychology, which was at the time the College of Arts and Sciences, um, I was around a lot of musicians,
Okay.
and I was in a sort of like a cappella group called In
Okay.
Time, and that was Gino Young, Daryl Hunt, Lauren Samuel, a couple of other people, Angela May,
Okay.
and I also was in a go-go band in DC that wasn't affiliated with Howard, although our keyboard player Cherie ended up coming to Howard. She
Okay.
transferred. She transferred from Oberlin, I believe. Um, so I was surrounded by
Hmm.
musicians and music, and I hung out with the cats. You know what I mean? Like I just seemed to find myself in those circles, with
Okay.
Raymond Angry and Chris Dave and whoever. Um, but I was an academic,
Okay.
who did music, like on the low. Like all my
Right.
academic friends didn't even really know that I don't think they really knew, unless they were very close to me, how involved in the music scene I was.
Okay.
I had a really good friend named Scotty Beats, who was an engineer at a studio called Night Flight. And Scotty, he went to Howard. He was an engineering student also. But Scotty was the one who like got me in the studio and
Okay.
and really showed me the ropes in that world in terms of learning how to produce vocals and
Okay.
arrange and lay vocals and all that kind of stuff. And then
Okay.
I became sort of the go-to girl for like demos for songwriters,
Okay.
um, and yeah, that was like my foray into that. But I kind of lived two lives at Howard.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it was interesting in that regard. I think a lot of people who know me now are, like, and knew me at Howard, especially the ones who were psychology students with me, they're
Okay.
like, "Oh my God, like you're really doing this." Like, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, sidetrack question. What 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 made you interested in psychology?
Um, my parents,
Okay.
my mother is a graduate of Tennessee State and Howard University, Tennessee State for
Okay.
undergrad, and she was a clinical social worker by profession. And so, so she had a private practice as a psychotherapist, and she's really the one who got me into that. And my father, his I think his master's is in sociology, so he was also into the study of human behavior,
Right.
though in terms of bigger groups. Um,
Okay.
so that was definitely, I was influenced by my parents, but
Wow.
my same two parents are also the ones who got me very much involved in my love for music and culture and
Really?
art. Yeah, like my
Okay.
mom always had music playing around the house, and and my father is actually a really great singer.
Okay.
And
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
would.
I heard him on one of your.
You
He
heard
featured on
that?
one of your songs on your album. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, that's Big Side, and he's definitely the one who where I get my ear from,
Okay.
and learned how to sing harmonies from, and learned how to really listen to parts. I get all that from him, and just his way of walking into a room and entertaining people. I totally get that from him.
Okay. Okay. That's what's
Yeah.
up. That's what's up. So you come from somewhat of a musical background. So you were influenced at a very young age to
I was, yeah, I mean, it's a stretch to say a musical background, but definitely a background that was immersed in culture. That
okay.
that much is true. My mother especially made sure that, I was reading a lot. I was,
Right.
she fed me books, so at a very young age, I'm reading Nikki Giovanni and Sonia
Oh
Sanchez and
wow.
Gwendolyn Brooks, and you know uh and listening to the last poets, very young, to the
Okay.
point where I got in trouble in second grade for, walking into my class and saying niggas are scared of revolution,
Wow.
you know like I was very much into, my mom made sure I was listening to all and reading those kinds of things, and just taking me to museums.
Right.
She didn't just passively play records in the house. She very actively and intentionally made sure that I understood what we come from as a people and who we
Right.
are and the things that we make,
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah,
That
yeah.
exposure definitely at a young age is everything in guiding somebody into, their purpose and what they want to do in life.
Absolutely. It changes the trajectory of your life when you're sort of, immersed into the culture like that, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful, for that sort of informal music, art, poetry appreciation that my mom gave me very early
Right.
on. Yeah.
Right. So when did that connection hit you to where you said, okay, this is something that I want to make a career out of?
Um, the connection where I decided to make a career out of it came very late in the game, but
Okay.
the love for the craft came very early. So all my life I had been studying music, you know, singing kind of came later too, in terms of the relativity of when people become singers. Like I didn't really start singing in front of people until I was
Mhm.
about 10 or 11, and that's kind of
Okay.
late, but even then, I did, piano lessons and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then I did the choir circuit from middle school on through high school, every choir I could join, I was in. So as far as repertoire was more like concert, sort of classical, like that was my repertoire.
Okay.
But and I didn't really step into contemporary music until I finished high school, because that's when I didn't get to join a go-go band until I finished high school. Yeah,
Okay.
that was the agreement,
That was
you
the
know.
condition, right?
Yeah. So that being said, I studied what I studied in college, and then you know how it is after around your junior years when you start looking into grad schools.
Okay.
So I was looking into grad schools. I took the GREs. I was being courted by a couple of programs because I did really well, in my courses and my studies, and I did really well on my GREs. So I was getting sort of recruited from
Wow.
different programs, and I went to visit a couple of programs. This is all because I was sort of on track to study clinical psychology in a PhD program. That's what I was
Okay.
looking to do. Um, and I was like, I don't know that I'm ready to make another 6-year commitment to to grad school right
I
now.
do not
Like,
blame you.
you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I think there's something else that I want to do. And
Uh-huh.
so it was probably my junior year at Howard that I said, yeah, I'm not gonna go to grad school right away.
Okay.
And I made that sort of, announcement to my parents nervously. And, my mother took it well. My father was like, not so much.
Yeah.
I think it was that nobody really knew how serious I was about music
Okay.
until that point. You
Okay.
know, I think everybody just thought it was a hobby, and I come from a family of non-artists.
Yeah.
So there was not really too many people in my family who chose art as a profession. I think
Okay.
I have one uncle, Uncle Joe, who is a really wonderful painter and sculptor and all that. But that's crazy Uncle Joe in California. You know what I mean? Like that's you know what I mean? So it was it was definitely something that everybody was surprised at. Um, Even myself,
Yeah.
to be honest, because to make that kind of declaration so early on and yet so late, you know, um, was it was a strange place. I think the timing was strange, I
Okay.
think to most people. But that's when that happened. Junior year at Howard, it was when I said,
Okay.
I think I'm going to try music and just see what happens, you know.
Wow. So that decision, what transpired? I know how long before, or well, how long after that did you decide to pack up everything and move to LA?
So what happened was what had happened was I finished school, graduated and stayed in DC
Hmm.
and worked on Capitol Hill for
Oh,
almost
wow.
a yeah, for the lobbyist who represented Santa Clara County, California. And I just happened into that job through a temp agency. Um, and I was pretty good at it. It was nothing really to it. I had a wonderful, boss, and she would, and I wasn't full time. I think I worked till like 3, most days, 3 or 4.
Okay.
I don't know, 2 or 3, 3 or 4. But I would dip out and, sing with the group that I was still in
Yeah.
time, and go to auditions for various things happening in the city. So I went to an audition for a play, uh, and, I never heard back from the director. And
Hmm.
and then and then in time went to an audition for, was it the Apollo or Motown? I can't remember, but it was a huge cattle call, and it was a really
Okay.
cold day, and it was at a club called Rhythms in Landover, and we stood in that line. I don't even know if we even ended up auditioning. I don't know what happened, but I ran into I ran into that director who
Okay.
saw me for that play, and he said, I'm still looking for my angel. That was the name of the character.
Okay.
Would you be interested in coming to California and doing this play? And I was like,
Wow.
whatever. I didn't think it was really going to happen. And a week later, I got a plane ticket in the mail. This is when plane tickets was still on paper,
Yeah.
and and I, and I, and I got a ticket in the mail to go to California. And so, I told my boss, I think I'm gonna go do this play. Is that okay? And she was totally supportive. She had a
Cool.
son in LA. She came to see the play.
Oh wow.
But it was just a small, workshop. It was really a glorified workshop, is what it was. But he
Hmm.
did it full out, at the Los Angeles Theater Center, downtown LA. And that was my first time in LA, and I loved it. You
Yeah.
know, it was hard work. We rehearsed every day or whatever. We put the play up for a couple of weekends, but I didn't want to go home after we
Yeah.
closed. So I decided I was going to stay, but I needed to go back to get my stuff.
Hmm.
So I went back to DC, stayed for about a month, packed up all my stuff, and then I drove back. And
Oh wow.
that's how I ended up, in LA though. It wasn't necessarily music directly that got me here. It was
Uh-huh.
acting, but that's how I got here.
Wow. Did you have any experience acting prior to that?
Not really. Not really.
Okay.
I had done a couple of musical theater productions in high school, but yeah, no, I hadn't really done much acting at all. The church plays.
Yeah,
I did a couple of those.
yeah.
Shout out to First Baptist on Minnesota Avenue.
That is amazing, man. How everything kind of just fell into place like that.
Yeah, when when something is for you, or when you're on the
Right.
road that you're supposed to be on, things just seem to fall into place. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that sometimes things aren't hard, but you really have to listen to that divine sort of spirit that leads you.
Right.
And so that that divine thing, my guardian most high, really kind of laid the path for me to find. And once I realized I was on the right path for me, I just stayed on it, as much as I
Cool.
could,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Well, speaking of divine paths, when I was looking, at your bio, I learned several things that I didn't know about you.
Okay.
You sang with some of the greatest artists, to ever walk this planet,
Yeah.
including the great Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what was that experience like?
um my good friend Charlotte Gibson, who is a singer here in Los Angeles, was one of the first people I met when I moved out here. Um, she got this audition opportunity for Whitney,
Okay.
and this is, years ago before Uber, and she's from, California, so she's not, I don't know why people from LA wouldn't call cabs, but they just wouldn't. They would just call their friends to pick them up. So she needed a ride to the mall, to get an outfit for this audition. So she called me. I took her to the mall. She got it. She got an outfit. Then I went home. A couple days later, she called me and was like, "Hey, can you take me to this audition?" I was like, "Sure,
Hmm.
I'll take you." Went, took her to the audition, dropped her off, went home. A couple hours later, she calls me back. I was like, "Hey, can you come pick me up?" I'm like, "Girl, why don't you call a cab?" But of course, I went and picked her up. But instead of waiting in the car, I get out and walk into center
Okay.
staging, which is where the auditions were. Walked into studio, I believe it was studio two, one or two. And just she's in there, and Ricky Minor, the music director,
Okay.
and just the two of them. And she says, "Ricky, this is my good friend Sai. You should hear her too. Like, she's really good. She can sing."
Wow.
And he was like, "You want her to take your gig?" And she was like, "No." But he said, "Okay, let's hear you right now." And the
Uh-huh.
three mics were still set up, from the auditions that had just finished.
Okay.
And there was a boombox sitting there. And he said, "Let's do I'm Every Woman right now," and press play on the boombox. And and the three of us sang it, me, Charlotte, and Ricky Minor.
Hmm.
He had me in the middle. I think he sang the bottom, Charlotte sang the top. And bam, right there on the chorus, "I'm every woman, it's all in me, anything you want done, baby, do it." And I know the backgrounds, because that's just, again, my father showed me how to learn those things
Right.
all my life. So I knew all the harmonies. I knew all those backgrounds.
Wow.
So then he said, "Okay, it's pretty good. Let's switch parts." And he put me on top, Charlotte in the middle. He stayed on the bottom. So we did that again. And then he was like, "Okay, let's do the bridge." "I ain't bragging, 'cause I'm the one just ask me." Oh, so I did that. And he was like, "Yeah, pretty good. If I ever need a soprano, I'll call you." And I was like,
Wow.
wow. And it was just like that. It was just one of those, occasions where opportunity met preparation. You know,
Yeah.
um, I hadn't set out to go on that audition. It wasn't even my audition. I was just there to pick up a friend. It just so happened that I knew the parts, and
Wow.
maybe 2 months later he called me, and I didn't think he was even gonna call. But 2 months later he called. Hey, Cy, it's Ricky Minor. How would you like to do Constitution Hall with Whitney Houston live on HBO? And I was like, what? Yeah. So my first show with her was back in my hometown of DC at
Wa-
Constitution Hall, live on
Wow.
HBO. Both of my parents in the audience. Like I could
Oh
not,
man.
it was,
Man.
yeah. And that sort of that was my second professional gig, you know? So yeah, it was good.
Wow. I like what you said, being prepared for the opportunity. Uh, because you just
Yeah.
never, I mean, I'm just the few minutes I've spoken with you, your story is like so just like awe-inspiring. Like, man, so motivating for me just to say, okay, I need to do a little better in how I handle some situations because I don't ever know when that door go open. So I want to make sure I'm prepared for it.
You never know when the door is going to open. That's the thing. And the reason I was kind of prepared like that was because many, many years ago, back in third grade, my seriously, third grade, my school, Naylor Road Private School in DC, had auditions for the choir. There was going to be a choir, and I wanted to be in this choir. And so I showed up to the audition, and the music teacher, who was new, it was a new lady, I didn't know who she was. She asked me to sing something, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She was like,
Mhm.
sing the solfege scale. And I said, what is that? And I was already really shy when it came to singing. I had never really sung in front of anybody.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, do re mi fa sol la ti do, from The Sound of Music.
Okay.
I didn't know what The Sound of Music was. I knew what The Wiz was. I
Right.
knew I knew what Lady Sings the Blues was, but The Sound of Music, I didn't know what that was. So I
Yeah.
didn't know what she was talking about. And I immediately clammed up and shut down, and
Hmm.
I didn't make it into the choir.
Wow.
And I was so mad, Lornell, because everybody was in that choir. Lisa got in the choir, Kimber, Shada, Jada, all of them got in, and I didn't get in. And I told myself from that moment on, I will never let that happened to me again. I made a vow to myself, like I'm
Wow.
never gonna, and so it took, 2 years and me changing schools before I auditioned for anything again. But the next time I auditioned for choir, I was ready, and it's been like that, I think, my whole life.
So a lesson you learned in the third grade has carried you.
Yep,
Wow.
yep,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That is amazing, man.
And I
That's
bet you
amazing.
nobody in that third grade choir sang what Whitney Houston sang.
I
Help.
can, yeah, I don't know who they are, but I will put my money on it that they did. That's
I'm
what's
pretty
up.
s- I'm pretty sure I'm the winner.
Exactly. Exactly, man. So
No.
and not just Whitney, you sang, background for a number of popular artists.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast, Questlove podcast, and they an interview they did with, and I don't want to tear her name up. I'm horrible at names, but Tawatha Geet,
Oh,
I believe,
yes. Uh-huh.
who has just made a career singing with some of the greats. And
Yes.
one of the things she said was that stood out to me, and it's something I'm not musically talented, but something she said that stuck out was the difficulty it is that's in singing background, especially in background sessions, having to come in and you have to know, like you just said, you have to know all the parts, and you have to know them pretty quickly, especially if you're doing recording sessions and things like that.
Yes.
Uh, what's some of the challenges that you faced in, because you sung background, you sing lead, you're the main attraction. What's some of the differences and some of the challenges that kind of dealt with in both, roles?
Um, yes, Miss shout out to Miss Tawatha. She's also a bison. So
Oh
she
wow.
makes,
Yeah, yeah, she sure
yes.
is. Yeah, I do remember her saying that on the podcast, right?
So the challenges are, probably different for everyone who's in it.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of times people assume that people who do supporting vocals want to be, the main attraction, and that's not always true.
Hmm.
So sometimes that can be a challenge when people are, sort of approaching supporting vocalists like, when are you gonna make an album? Da, 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 da. Like sometimes that's not what everybody wants.
Yeah.
To the assumption that everybody isn't fulfilled at what they're doing with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's a big sense of satisfaction from being a part of the band,
Yeah.
and I really love that. Sometimes the challenges are very simple, like just financially. Sometimes people assume background singers shouldn't make as much as everybody else,
Oh wow.
and so a lot of times, we're fighting for our finances. We,
Okay.
just fighting for the bag to get
Yeah.
to be treated with the same sort of equity as the rest of the band. But I'm sure that other people have those same challenges, dancers and everybody else. But
Hmm.
but I do find that has been something um, to be aware of. Uh, Sometimes it just really depends. The artists that you're working with sometimes are very hands off, and sometimes they're very hands on, and you just
Okay.
kind of got to know the ledge.
Okay.
Um, I find that I tend to be more a part of the band rather than trying to hang with the artist. That's just
Yeah.
me, you
Okay.
know. But when it comes to being on stage and knowing that music and being there for the artist, I'm there.
Okay.
Because that's my job, to have the artist back. Like sometimes with Whitney, uh, sometimes my job was and I Will Always Love You. My job was to sing the high note, when she would go, oh, I will always love. It was me that went, you,
Wow.
and then she would crossfade into it.
Okay.
So my job was to look at her from the back and watch her like a hawk to see if she needed me to be there. Because it wasn't
Wow.
like she would say it. It wasn't like she was going to say it in the mic. You know what I mean?
That
Like,
would be awkward,
sigh,
right?
yeah. But it was the cues that she would sort of give with her body would let me know. And I had to watch her
Wow.
like a hawk to make sure I was there. I couldn't miss,
Yeah.
you know, because if I missed, nobody would be there.
Wow.
A lot of times, I think beginners don't realize, like, you got to watch the artist like a hawk, because
Yeah.
your job is to support their vocals,
Yeah.
as well as be a part of the band, as well as hearing your fellow singers and being a part of that balance. And I love that. That's the challenge.
Okay.
Um, and then, what was the other part of your question? Sort of the being
Yeah. The lead, because you're the lead as well. Which
yeah.
one is more difficult for you? The supporting role or the main attraction when the spotlight is on you, the brightest?
I mean, there's definitely more on your shoulders when your name is on the marquee,
Yeah.
you know, because everything rides on you.
Okay.
Nobody is going to leave the venue saying, wow, that percussionist really wasn't in the pocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to say, damn, Psy's band wasn't really, it's going to be Psy, in
Right.
that sentence, that
Right.
word. Um, so it's really about making sure that you have the strength to carry that load, um, and then the know-how to delegate properly,
Yeah.
delegate to people that you can trust to handle whatever that position is.
Yeah.
Making sure that no matter what comes at you that day, that you still give your audience the show that you want to give them.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we hit the stage and nobody knows what we've gone through that day,
Right.
um, because they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Nobody wants, but the show has to go on no matter what.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can be a challenge, but the rewards are so much greater.
Uh-huh.
especially when we have successful shows and when we have sold out venues and we get standing ovations. I think everybody
Hmm.
on the bandstand feels that, you know.
Yeah.
And I try to let my folks know as much as I can how much they are appreciated, you know, how much they are a part of the train that we're pulling,
Right.
you know. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, yeah, 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 yeah. For me, yeah, 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 yeah. For me, yeah, 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 yeah. For me, yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm a big fan of Eric Roberson, so I'm a
Yeah.
part of his process. And it's one of the best things out there, in my opinion, because he actually lets you be involved in his creative process, and you see it from a
Yeah.
different point of view. And
Right.
you see how he puts together a song, see how the lyrics come together and the music
Right.
comes together. What does Side's creative process look like?
Um, Again, shout out to HU, Eric Roberson. We
Yeah,
were there
right.
together. We were there at the same time.
Oh
Um,
wow, really?
yeah, we started at the same time. Um, my process is, you know, my process is so wild. I think it's hard to bottle it up and say in one sentence
Hmm.
because my inspiration comes from everywhere and anywhere, you know, and
Yeah.
obviously, you know, we're not all always sitting in the studio when the inspiration comes, you know,
Hmm.
it's so the process really begins, you know, from the moment I was born. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even in my sleep, I'm thinking about stuff
Yeah.
and possibly being inspired by something. You know, things come to people in dreams all the time. Things come to people
Yeah.
while we're awake. So so once I have the inspiration, um, I think for me, it depends on what I'm writing and how I'm writing it. Like, am I writing to a track? Then, you know, my process is a little different than if I'm sitting at the keys writing
Okay.
something. You know, the Sometimes a Rose Will Grow in Concrete album, I sat at the piano and wrote that whole album
Oh
myself,
wow.
you know, or the Fender Rhodes, whichever one I was sitting at,
Okay.
because that's what I wanted that album to be. I wanted that to be something that I wrote and produced myself in its
Okay.
entirety. But when I'm writing to tracks, it's very much different because half of the job is done, you know.
Yeah.
Um, at least, in theory, half the job is
Hmm.
done, you know. So I just kind of listen to the track and see what it makes me feel like. You know,
Okay.
does it make me feel like summer, fall? Does it make me feel like the color blue, or the
Yeah.
color periwinkle? Or does it make me, does it make me want to fight or does it make me want to do push-ups? Does it make me want
Yeah.
to, fall in love or does it make me want to break up? But,
Okay.
I think about all those things. And I don't necessarily, I'm saying all of this to you like, like it's a step by step, but usually this all happens in a rush, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and then I just kind of go with whatever words or phrases kind of come to me.
Okay.
And I just kind of write whatever comes and see how that feels, Sometimes the words don't always come articulately, sometimes it's
Yeah.
very sort of, ooh, la la, baby, when you talk of something crazy. You might get one or two words and the rest is like mumble,
Yeah.
And then you just kind of sit and work it out.
And fill it in.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. And if it feels right, then you go with that.
Cool.
But yeah, that's sort of the process in a nutshell. For sometimes though, the whole thing will just come. And when that happens, I don't question it for the most part. I
Yeah.
just I just go with because I'm like, that's a divine thing that happens.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, one or two words might get edited for the sake of melody or rhythm.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes that happens too.
Cool. No, I definitely want to touch on something that I think is definitely great. You own your own label, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Psycho, is it?
Yes.
And now that you're a psychology major, it all makes sense why you named it. Why you named it that. What year did you start that?
Probably, I mean, I put my first CD out on my own in
Mhm.
2001,
Okay.
and that was an EP called One Like Me. And One Like Me was just something I wasn't even thinking about it. There was no independent soul scene back then, you know.
Yeah.
I was just like doing these shows in town here in LA and called Bitchcraft. It was a venue that I
Okay.
started. It was a venue that I started to feature females in the performing arts. I wanted women to
Okay.
have a place to play, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just women who were singers. I had women from all the disciplines. I had comedians, I
Wow.
had dancers, I had actors. Where we would just come and showcase what we did, and then at the end of each night, I did 45 minutes, with my
Okay.
band, and it was a lot of fun. Um, but people after the show would be like, "Do you have a CD we can buy?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why don't I have a CD?" At the time, I had maybe 2 years or maybe a year before that had just gotten dropped from my label, and they never put out my CD. So
Okay.
I didn't have a CD to put out, but I was like, "But I could have one. Like,
Hmm.
let me just put some songs together that I have and put them on a just go burn it. And so I walked into disc makers and was like, how much would it cost for me to make a CD?
Hmm.
And that's how Psycho happened. It was just me
Wow.
going, I should just put out a CD, and you know, then I'll have it. It have something to sell.
Wow. Wow. And that,
Yeah.
2021 is not uncommon to see, independent artists or, artists with their own label. But in 2001,
Yes.
that was rare, not only for artists, but definitely a Black female artist to
Right.
step out. Was it a difficult decision to say, okay, I'm gonna go all the way through with this, or
It wasn't a difficult decision, Lornell, because I wasn't really thinking about it. It
okay?
wasn't like a strategy, it was just necessity, you know.
Oh, okay.
Um, if I had thought about it, I probably would have thought myself out of doing it,
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and there was no social media back then. There was really no conglomerate, or place, where independent soul artists could gather,
yeah.
uh, whether on the internet or in person. So so I really didn't have, like a network. I just was like, let me just do this CD and see what happens.
Yeah,
Um, it and it just so happened that it really, that I did well with that. I sold a bunch of them. I sold them
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And now if you look up One Like Me on eBay, you'll probably find them for, way more than I was selling them for. I should have held on to a few of them. But and there was, like you said, there was, Black women doing it was definitely, a rarity. But in LA, the soul scene in
Mhm.
LA, the independent soul scene, I gotta say, was driven by Black women at that
Okay.
time. It was Medusa. She was
Yeah.
she is a hip hop artist.
Hmm.
Medusa was doing a thing that was very popular at Fado Do. Kim Hill, who was the original singer at the Black Eyed Peas, Kim Hill was
Okay.
doing her thing. At the Temple Bar and other places around the city, and she was doing really well. And then there was me, and I was doing my little thing. But it seemed like we were sort of the three of us, and there were a couple of other groups, at the time. But I remember the three of us kind of being sort of the driving forces at the
Yeah.
back then.
Okay.
There was the Soul of John Black. But yeah, but it was us three kind of moving and shaking things, even if we don't get the credit for it.
Yeah, I know. No,
You
I
know,
definitely understand.
if you ask the people who book the venues, that's what they would say, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I were the driving force of everything that's going on. Cool.
Yeah, as far as independent soul went,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Well, independent artists probably are I don't know if it's by happenstance or what, but like when I go down the top of my list of my favorite artists, I think most of them are independent artists. So I admire what you and what all you guys do, because I don't know the music industry. I don't know how it operates, but I'm sure it takes a special discipline and dedication to go out on your own and try to make it
Yeah.
happen by yourself. So I admire that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, we couldn't do what we do without listeners like you,
Hmm.
and supporters like you, um, beating the drum for us,
Yeah.
you know, letting the village know what's out there,
Yeah, well, yeah, y'all. I mean, y'all music touches, and I'm speaking specifically for me, uh, touches me on a whole new level. I connect with,
Ah, thank you.
your lyrics. I connect. I came across you through foreign exchange.
Okay.
That's how and I I always try to give props to, cats like that, like yourself, like Eric
Thank you.
Roberson, because y'all have really been a special part of my life.
Thank
I,
you.
I remember seeing Foreign Exchange in concert down here in Houston, and just so happened, I ran into Fonte at a restaurant after it was over with,
Yeah.
and that's doing the Authenticity tour. And
Oh,
I had to
okay.
tell him, I was like, "Hey, man, your album literally saved my life." Because some
Wow.
of the things that I was
Wow.
going through, at the time,
Yeah.
mentally and emotionally, and that album, itself kind of helped me get through those things. So I
Oh, that's
applaud what you
beautiful.
guys do. Y'all, if nobody else tells y'all, keep doing what you're doing, because your music,
Thank
your
you.
talents, your gifts, they inspire people on the level, and
Thank
who
you.
cares if you know y'all don't get the recognition from the world that you should, because and this is just me speaking. I think a lot of stuff that's promoted and that's put out there shouldn't be promoted and put out there over the things that guys like yourself do, because
Thank
y'all
you.
music, y'all talent, it inspires people on, and that's why
Thank
y'all have the
you.
followings that y'all do,
Thank
because
you.
people connect with you guys, and I
Thanks a
applaud that
lot.
and I appreciate it for sure.
I appreciate that so much. And I want to say this. I was on that authenticity tour. How come I wasn't at the restaurant eating? They ain't take me to
Man,
eat.
you know what? Um, who
Where was I?
it was Fonte. You know what? I don't think you were there though. I think it was Corman and I know Corman
I
and
did the authenticity tour.
okay, well maybe I know who showed up at the restaurant. You might have been there,
I'm
and
like,
I
where was
just
I?
you might have, because
Maybe.
it was the concert y'all did at White Oak Hall, I believe, and
Oh no, that I don't think I was there. White Oak Hall?
yeah, it was a
No, I
concert
don't
at
think
White
so.
Oak Hall,
Maybe I
and
wasn't there.
okay, yeah, because I think Corman showed up, and I can't. It was him. It was Fonte, Corman, and somebody else,
But
and
are you sure it was the authenticity tour?
it had, because that was the first time I saw Foreign Exchange, I believe.
Huh.
That was the first time I saw Foreign Exchange. It may not
I
have
want
been
to
the
know why I
Authenticity
didn't.
tour.
How come I didn't get to come to the Waffle House? Where were y'all? Where were y'all?
Yeah,
No.
I may have the tour draw. I know it was uh I know Authenticity was the album they had out. Love and Flying, I think Love and Flying Colors hadn't came out yet. So
Right.
it was
Okay.
it was during that time period.
It might have been right before the Love and Flying Colors came out.
Yeah. And I know that was my first time seeing them. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Maybe if you were
No,
there,
I'm
I
just
apologize.
no, I'm just being silly. I'm just being silly. I don't
No,
even
man.
really hang out after shows,
You don't
so
hang out after shows.
not really, no.
Well, I know the food was good, so you
I'm
missed
sure it
out if you
was.
didn't. Yeah, the food was great. So, man,
Oh, that's funny.
I it's something else I wanted to hit on. But
I'm
like I
actually
said,
working with Zoe and Fonte on some new music now, so
that's what I wanted
you
to
might
talk to
be
you
happy.
about. Yeah, I heard I listened to your interview with Kendrick and the Family Soul.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that you had with I'm gonna call her Miss Kendrick because I can't think of her name
Yeah.
right off the top. That y'all did
Asia.
on that y'all did on IG
Uh-huh.
Live, and I heard you mention that you were working with Zoe. You and Zoe work together a lot. I see that you
We
support
do.
him a lot. How did
Yeah.
that relationship come about?
Well, we met through a guy named Dwayne Powell who used to work at a
Okay,
place called Dr. Wax in Chicago. Dwayne told Zoe about me, and then one time I walked into Dr. Wax and Dwayne told me about Zoe, gave
okay,
me one of his albums, like you got to listen to this Freelance, that CD.
yeah,
and I loved it. I fell in love with that record, and then I don't think Zoe and I met in person. I think Dwayne called him on the phone one time when I was in Dr. Wax, and we talked, but I don't think we met in person until maybe 2008-ish,
Okay.
when I was doing shows to support my album Conflict.
Hmm.
So I was in DC doing something for Conflict, and I think that's where me and Zoe met in person. And we did. I think I did Just Visiting 2. I think that's when I did Crazy You. He had sent me the Crazy You
Oh,
track.
one of my favorite
Uh,
songs. Okay.
yeah, 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 the word up. Um, and then, and we hit it off pretty well. Um, and then 2010 was when I got the call to do foreign exchange.
Okay.
So May of 2010, and I just, showed up at the gig, and we didn't even rehearse. Like I just showed up at sound check and
Oh
just,
wow.
knew my shit, and that's when I met Darian Brockington and
Yeah.
Fonte. I had already met Nicolay years before that, but
Okay.
and Zoe was there, and so yeah, that was my first gig with Foreign Exchange, was at UCLA Reggae Fest,
Okay.
and we hit it off again, and then I just was with them from that point on, and
Yeah.
Zoe and I started working together after that. I think he sent me Greatest Weapon, what became Greatest Weapon of All Time, that
Okay.
track. Um,
Beautiful song as well. Yeah.
Thank you. But that was, what, again, one of those songs when you were asking about the process. He sent me that track, and that intro was like, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And I all I could see was like doors opening up. Like that's
Yeah.
what it felt like to me. So my first line in that song is, "Ooh, I've been waiting, yes. Ooh, I've been jaded, yes. Complicated by factors that were out of my control." And it was just sort of me sort of embracing, like, yeah, things have been hard, but now, so I've been golden gates and doors to open so I can come into my fold, or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's what that track made me feel like,
Wow.
that's why those words came out like that, and now I'm
Wow.
thinking that it's my time. Don't ever underestimate the power of your mind, because it might be the greatest weapon of all time. It just
Yeah.
it just flowed like that. Like I didn't really have to work hard on those lyrics at all, because that's what the track felt like,
Wow. Wow, well,
Yeah.
y'all make some beautiful work together. That
Thank
like
you.
I came across Crazy You late, when I started backtracking and trying to listen to
Ah,
everybody's music, and I wore that song out. I know for a good year
yeah.
on YouTube at the
Oh, thank
time.
you.
Yeah, wore it out. So
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that. I have a
yeah, and
funny
so
story about that. Um, Years ago, when I was doing some work with Sheila E, and we were opening for
mhm,
Prince at the Forum. Prince was notorious for like snatching stuff off of YouTube, that, covers of his and
yeah,
all kinds of, anything of his, snatching it off of YouTube, getting it taken down off the nets. Um, and so we were at the Forum, we were opening for Prince, and we were in the dressing room. I had just come back in the dressing room, the big Sheila E, the family, the Escovedo
yeah,
family dressing room, because I was in the hallways trying to get something done. And I came back into the dressing room, and the whole Escovedo family is in a circle. And I hear Sheila go, and this is so and so, and that's Sai, who just walked in. And I was like, what? Like, what are you saying? And she's like, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to. And she pointed into the circle, and Prince is standing right there. And
oh
I was
wow.
like, oh shit, and I cursed, and then I had to take the curse back, because you can't curse in front of Prince. And I'm like, and everybody just started laughing. And
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hi, I'm Sai," and he was like, "I know who you are."
Oh wow.
he said, he said, "I know who you are. I'm a fan," and
Oh
and I was
wow.
like blown away. But I had to think back on that, and I was like, of course he knows who I am, because he never snatched Crazy You off of
Crazy you all.
YouTube.
Yeah.
That meant he approved, and so that was just, a happy sort of ending there.
That's what's up, man. That what I'm like I say, it's still one of my favorite songs to this day.
Thank
And
you.
I know I wore it out when I first came
Thank you.
across it. I was so upset with myself. I was like, man, how did I not know that all this great music,
Oh
was
man.
out here? So
I mean, don't be
yeah,
upset with yourself. There's so much, you can't fault yourself for not knowing, half of it.
yeah.
There's so much to discover,
So, well, that's one thing I love about the times we're in now, because of technology. You can go,
Yeah.
back in the day, it was kind of hard to come up. I was broke, so I wasn't going to buy no
Yeah.
CDs unless.
Look, are you telling me I used to go to the library and check CDs out, because for real, like, you didn't really have money to just be blowing like that on
Right.
on $20 CDs when you
Yeah.
12, 13, 14 years old. Yeah. So
Yeah.
shout out to Prince George's County Library System because I was checking out everything.
I do not, because now anything can pop up. I'm on it. I
Right.
love music. I can't play or sing to save my life, but just the emotion that I connect with to it, I love it. I love it.
That's a beautiful
So
thing.
I'm excited, about what you got coming out. You say you're working with Zoe. Anything else that's on the table? I know you got a single out right now. That's amazing.
Thank
We make you
you.
feel good. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 What
So
kind of
feeling good
inspired
is
that?
out. Feeling Good was inspired by I was doing live stream shows pretty early on in the pandemic, and me and my boy Dominique Xavier, keyboard player, super super dope, plays with Ghost Note, used to play with
Hmm.
Toto, Prince. He played with everybody. But
Okay.
Dominique Xavier and I were doing these live stream shows from my living room, and he was playing these chords, and I really loved the chords, and I had never sung Feeling Good in my life, never.
Okay.
But the chords for some reason made me think of, birds flying high. The chords didn't even match the song. They
Uh-huh.
weren't even the same progression. I had to change the melody to make it work, but I felt those lyrics in those
Yeah.
chords for some reason. And when we did it live, everybody in the comments was like, "Oh my God, we love this, we love this,"
Yeah.
and I posted a clip of it maybe a month later, and everybody, not a month later, but a couple of weeks later, and everybody was like, "We need this single."
Hmm.
So I tapped him and asked if he would make a track for it, and I released it, at the end of 2020,
Hmm.
December 30th, because I wanted to sort of inject some optimism and positivity going
Lord
into
knows we needed it,
2021.
right?
Yeah, that was,
Right.
so that was the intention, and so that's how that came about. And then
Cool.
I knew I wanted to do a photo shoot for the new year, and I
Uh-huh.
and I was like, I might as well make this photo shoot a video shoot. So I wrote a video treatment for
Okay.
Feeling Good, and that's how we ended up doing the video. Shout out to Mike Quain, my director.
Wow.
But that's how we got that video done.
Man,
Yeah.
great song, great,
Thank you.
beautiful video.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm feeling everything about feeling good. No pun
Thank you.
intended. So yeah, I'm loving it. Anything else that we can be looking forward to this year from you?
um, just some new music with me and Zoe and the FE crew, I should say.
Ah man,
It's coming soon. I don't know
cool.
when, but just look for it in 2021.
I am excited about that. It's
Actually, Zoe has a new album coming out, and I'm
coming
on
out.
that with Tall
Okay.
Black Guy. So yeah, I do have a song on that. So
Yeah, I know he just dropped his second single from it last
yes,
this love it. Yeah,
yeah,
this
I
past
love
one.
that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fonte and Messina and Darian
Yeah,
Brockington.
they
That's
killed that.
that's that's my summer anthem.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually been on repeat all weekend as well. So yeah, they
Yeah, it's a
killed that.
jam.
They killed that, man. Well, how can people support you? Where can they find you? Where can they get your music?
I'm out here in these internet streets. You can find me on Instagram at cyberspace, SYBERSPACE, and I'm in these tweets at cyberspace also,
Okay,
SYBERSPACE. Facebook.com/CySmithMusic, and if anybody forgets all of that, CySmith.com is still a thing,
okay,
and my online store is cyberspace.bigcartel.com. You can
cool.
find, limited vinyl there. I'm almost out of all my CDs, but you can find a couple of CDs there, and I
Okay.
have sweatshirts and hoodies and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff.
Your
So
coffee mug is dope,
coffee
by the
mugs,
way.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
coffee mug is dope. So, well,
appreciate
man,
that.
again, I definitely appreciate you joining me. Like I said, just I'm almost kind of just speechless at the fact that I got to talk
Oh,
to you, because this is
oh,
something that I didn't even expect. That when I sent the email, I was like, let me just see what happens. And
hey, the worst thing anybody can tell you is no,
it's no, right, right.
you know?
Well, the fact that you said yes, man, means so much to me. And if I
Oh,
wasn't already, I definitely will be a fan for life. You have one in me.
oh,
Any
thank
way
you.
that I can support, anything that you got going on, I'm here for it. So I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. I
I
appreciate you.
appreciate it.